You're watching Backstreet Gossip, news talk, current events, and political commentary with your host, Ron Ludders. Now, let's return to the show.
My boss been wet. Palmas, true under dash dubba depressure. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, today I am going to teach you how to speak Bidenese. I'm going to teach you a few words and then we'll get the proper pronunciation and context from the master himself, President Joe Biden. The first word I'm going to teach you today is nexnosrent. Nexnosrent. President Biden will now demonstrate this word for us.
Donald Trump does pose an extra threat to this. It's not hypothetical.
It's not hypothetical. Nexnosrent. Okay, the next word we've got is badikefker. Badikefker. Say it. Try it. Badikefker. President Biden.
Barack and I think it's a right for people to have bad health care.
Next, my bus been wet. Now, a common error on this one is people put the stress on the wrong syllable. It's not my bus been wet. It's not my bus been wet. It's my bus been wet. Say it. My bus been wet.
My bus been wet.
Next, we have a word that's much simpler. Palmist. Palmist. Can you say palmist? President Biden, palmist.
And if we do, and I'm sure we can proclaim the palmist with the palmist who wrote these following words.
All right, now that you've got 4 words in the bag, we're going to move on to a really complex Bidenese word. Do you think you're ready for it? You're going to really have to pay attention here. This is sort of advanced level Bidenese. Very long word, okay? This is what it is. It's a very long word. Are you ready? Truender dash dubba depressure. Truender dash dubba depressure. One word. One word. Truender dash dubba depressure. Say it a little more quickly. Truender dash dubba depressure. Truender dash dubba depressure. President Biden, go.
I'll lead an effective strategy to mobilize true international effort to pressure.
Truender dash dubba depressure. You guys did fantastic. You learned 5 new words in a new language, and now you know more Bidenese than you knew yesterday. What can I do but leave President Biden with the last word?
So I'm going to say something outrageous. I have never been particularly poor at calculating how to get things done in the United States Senate. So the best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway, we're going to get a lot. I got hairy legs.
Debit pressure?
Oh,
what is
my
it?
God. Please help us.
Hey, listen, you know what? Everybody does gaffes.
Yes.
Everybody. But consistently, multiple times during a short segment.
Well, Dan Quayle did one. He spelled a word differently.
Tomato with an E?
Right. Well, no, potato.
Potato with an E.
Right. And they repeated that hundreds and hundreds of times. One time. And then Gerald Ford did a couple of words, right? Here, he does a word every time he speaks.
Listen,
and yet they don't say a word about it.
Listen, I have to introduce you. You're off and running. You sure weren't a track star instead of a wrestling coach? You were off and running before the gun shot off here. At any rate, this is Ben Wick, and he's our resident guest and correspondent on anything constitutional. Now, we have a what I consider not only a constitutional crisis, but a crisis in total lack of leadership in our country. And Mr. Neal, do you happen to have... I watched the show last night, The Next Revolution, and it was very, very concise, and I didn't think we could do it any better. Do you have that up yet? Okay, listen to this. It's going to be a little long. It's about 6 or 7 minutes, but I think he says everything that we want to talk about in the next hour.
Okay.
Go ahead, Neil. Thank you, sir.
A new poll out today shows Americans wanted to withdraw from Afghanistan. but they disapprove of the way you've handled it. A poll also found that, based in part on what's transpired in the last week, a majority of Americans, and forgive me, I'm just the messenger, no longer consider you to be competent, focused, or effective in the job.
I haven't seen that poll.
I bet you haven't. That was Biden just hours ago, and yet another mumbling, stumbling, bumbling performance in which he tried to spin his way out of the disaster he's created, but at the same time admitted it could get even worse, that he might have to extend the withdrawal deadline that just days ago he was adamant he would stick to, and perhaps most astonishingly promised tough screening for every non-US national evacuated from Afghanistan while leaving our southern border wide open. Evening, everyone. Welcome to The Next Revolution. I'm Steve Hilton, and this is the home of positive populism, pro-worker, pro-family, pro-community, and especially pro-America. This was the New York Times this morning, the front page. On Saturday morning, a former interpreter for an American company in Kabul plunged into a mass of humanity outside a gate at the Kabul airport with her family in tow, including her husband and 2-year-old daughter. Then the crowd surged. The entire family was slammed to the ground. She remembered someone smashing her cell phone and someone else kicking her in the head. As she struggled to her feet, she said, she searched for her toddler. The girl was dead, trampled to death by the mob. She might as well say trampled to death by Joe Biden, along with all the others. At least 12 crushed at the airport gates yesterday, another 7 today. How many more? Will we see Americans slaughtered? Will they be taken hostage? Dozens? Hundreds? Thousands? We don't know. Biden doesn't know. He doesn't seem to care. Desperate people clinging to American planes and falling to their deaths. And what's the response from Mr. Empathy and Compassion? That was 4 days ago. Have you ever heard anything so cold, so callous, so heartless? As the saying goes, the presidency doesn't change who you are, it reveals who you are. And these last few days, we've seen who Biden really is. He's a liar. He lied in April when he announced all this. He lied in July when he defended it. He lied last Monday. He lied to George Stephanopoulos on Wednesday. He lied on Friday, and now it's Sunday, so he lied again. He said Americans were having no trouble getting to the airport, even as his own State Department was sending out security alerts saying don't even try getting to the airport because the US government cannot ensure safe passage. Biden said al-Qaeda is gone from Afghanistan minutes later. His own Defense Department said that wasn't true. Now we learn that not only is al-Qaeda not gone, their Haqqani network is controlling the perimeter of Kabul airport. Biden's put the people who attacked us on 9/11 as the TSA for the Americans he trapped behind enemy lines. Biden said he planned for this outcome, planned for it. If this chaos is his plan, well, he should resign just for that. He said no one around the world is questioning his credibility. Yeah, no one except the current UK Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, described as furious, let down. It's a betrayal. Biden is, quote, lightweight and inward-looking. According to one report, they think Biden is, quote, a bit doolally. That's British for senile. The former Prime Minister, Tony Blair, called it tragic, dangerous and unnecessary. And then he used this word, imbecilic. Joe, if you're having a slow day, that's not a recipe. It's not imbalsamic. Blair said imbecilic, as in imbecile, as in you, Joe Biden, are an imbecile. Biden told us he's a foreign policy genius, years of experience, America's back. He's so delusional he really believes it, and that is why we're in this mess. After his shameful attempts to blame everyone but himself, the Afghans, Obama, Trump, the State Department, the intelligence agencies, for his catastrophe, well, now the leaks are coming thick and fast, the warnings from the military, the dissent memo from the diplomats. Biden was told that rushing to get everyone out to meet his misjudged and offensive political deadline of September the 11th would be a disaster, but he did it anyway, because as we can now see, Biden is a frightening combination of ignorant and arrogant, senile and stubborn. So look where the great foreign policy genius has landed us, with what's been described by the Germans as the biggest debacle NATO has suffered since its founding. by others as the worst foreign policy disaster in American history. His own generals raising the terror threat level here as a direct result of Biden's actions. Biden and all these wretched establishment nitwits sold themselves as the mature, competent adults who understand governance, who know how to run things after the chaos of Trump, while now we see how utterly clueless they are. Chaos in Afghanistan, chaos at the border, chaos in the cities with crime out of control, chaos about to hit the economy with inflation back, all of it a direct result of their policies. Even on the pandemic, chaos as their own actions undermine confidence in the vaccine and their ability to get things under control. Look at the mess. In less than a year, 2 massive humanitarian crises, one on the other side of the world and one on our own southern border. Guess who's suffering? The poor, the vulnerable, the exact people the left claim they speak for. Never forget that this is what Democrats do when they get in power. They hurt the people they say they want to help. But above all, we now see the true nature of the author of this catastrophe, Joe Biden. This empty, hollow husk of a man without honor, a man without decency, a man without empathy, a man without integrity. He's brought shame and humiliation on the presidency, on this country, and if there is any justice, any accountability, this truly despicable man needs to go. Yes, he needs to go. Not just his regime of incompetence. He, Biden, must be held accountable. Not through the 25th Amendment, though it's obvious to everyone he's not fit for his office. And yes, if Biden goes, we get Harris, another utterly unprincipled machine politician, just as weak, just as useless, just as bad. But consider what Biden has done to America. When a president does more damage to America's standing and authority than anyone who's gone before, when he humiliates America around the world, when he creates a moral stain of this magnitude, when he puts our security at risk and our citizens in peril behind enemy lines, when you have a president who is this pitiful, this contemptible, there must be accountability. Biden must resign or be impeached and then be recorded as the worst president in American history.
Wow, I couldn't have said that any better. That's exactly how I feel. Now, ladies and gentlemen,
while those words are fresh in your mind, what that man just said, that described Joe Biden before he was elected.
You're certainly right.
It described Joe Biden before he was elected, and people still voted for him.
You know, we're still being fed the idea that that man received more votes than any other presidential candidate in the history of the United States. And I don't know. I saw this. I mean, he ran many, many times before. He had to get out because of plagiarism. He's never been that popular. I don't know. To try to believe that, to have somebody sell that to you, in thinking that really took place, it's I don't know. It's impossible.
We have to understand that everything that we've talked about with the education, what we've been actually talking about for the last 6 months, is all, you have to look at the big picture. And Joe Biden actually told the truth there that one time. He's told the truth 2 times in the last year. One, 2 days before the election, when he said that they had put in place the greatest way to steal an election. Right? Remember that? He said that.
He did,
and he just admitted right there that this is something that they planned for.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the plan, people. This is the plan. This whole thing, the pandemic, the border, right? Afghanistan. This is all designed to do exactly what Barack Hussein Obama told us in 2018,
fundamentally
transform America.
So, you know, the 5 people that were exchanged for the traitor, Bo Bergdahl, right? The 5 people are now running the operation.
Right.
Because we traded them out 5 for 1.
Why do you think Obama chose those 5 people? Do you not think that he knew what he was doing? He knew that they were the leaders.
You know, I just wanted to tell our audience something. We asked last Monday, Ray, we had talked about the president resigning. That's not going to happen because there are powerful people behind the president, and I believe it's Barack Obama that's really running the country.
Well, he even said it in an interview. He said, "My dream job would be behind the scenes, pushing all the buttons, making things happen, and he is back there where nobody really knows what's going on."
And there's a lot of question as to whether he is a Muslim or not. He had admitted at one time that he was a Muslim, then he said he wasn't a Muslim. They have pictures of him wearing Muslim clothing.
Well, he did bow. He did bow down to the King of Saudi Arabia.
Yes,
you know, and he didn't give that same recognition
so the real
to the
question, the real question, and this is why we asked Ben to come here. What do we do? What options do we have to get rid of this man? He has to go. There's no question of that.
All right, so
it's how we're going to get him out of office.
Here's the nuts and bolts. There are only two ways that a president is removed from office. One is by death, and the other is by impeachment. Those are the only two ways. Even according to the 25th Amendment, which people have talked about, all that does is make the vice president the acting president while the president is indisposed.
Incapacitated, right?
Right. As it says here, they are unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office.
And this
but
came
they're
about,
still the president.
Right. So this came about, give the history of why the 25th Amendment came about.
All right. We don't have time to do that.
Okay.
It would take an hour to do that.
Okay.
But the basic, and we have actually gone over this once before when they were trying to pull this on President Trump. But the issue here is the stabilization of the country. And so with the 25th Amendment, all it does is set the president on a shelf, and then the vice president performs the duties of president, and we don't have a vice president. All right? And that goes on indefinitely until the end of the term. So
until the president would have the faculties they could come back into.
Well, in order to come back, he has to declare himself as having the faculties, and then it takes 2/3 of a vote of Congress to readmit him as president.
Oh.
All right.
Who's the one that determines that he is incompetent?
There's two ways to do that. One is that the vice president and the majority of the executive officers, as designated by Congress, which typically is the cabinet, they can ask Congress to vote that he is unable to discharge his duties. And then the Congress, both House and Senate, must vote a majority that he is unable to, and then they make the vice president acting president.
Is it a simple majority?
Yes.
Okay.
So, but the president then can object or say, no, I am competent, but it takes 2/3 to overturn themselves.
Okay.
All right. So, but basically, that option does not help us at all. That option does not help us at all.
Because it doesn't actually remove them from office.
Right. And to be quite honest, like I mentioned to Ron yesterday, is even removing him from office doesn't solve the problem. It only exacerbates the problem. And again, look at the big picture. All of this is part of the big picture. The pandemic or the scamdemic, the Afghanistan situation, the border situation. This is all what Barack Obama said is to fundamentally transform America.
And reducing our energy.
Right.
Right?
Yes, that was the other thing.
Increase energy.
It's all designed to create confusion and chaos. You create confusion and chaos. You bring in a charade, which then equals the dictator coming in.
It forces the government entity to find a solution to a problem that they created.
Correct. And that's the what they call unintended consequences of government. So this is all Because if you fundamentally transform America, America ceases to exist. And when you have Donald Trump interfered with that by saying, no, make America great again, make America exist, the whole end game was to make America not exist. All of these things. So removing Joe Biden doesn't solve that problem, because Kamala Harris has been put in place to do the exact same thing. The problem is she can't even speak Bidenese. If you've heard her attempt to speak, she can't speak at all.
She laughs. She's got this worse. She's got a Hillary Clinton.
Okay, here. Let me finish this, because this, I believe, is the scariest scenario. So right now we're stuck between a rock and a hard place. All right, and so you can't get rid of Biden. If we keep Biden and Harris, we just keep muddling in a mess and hope that the election turns out in 2022. If we get rid of Biden and Harris, we end up with worse. Because here's how that nuts and bolts works. So if perchance they convince Joe Biden to resign and go back to his basement in Delaware, by the way, Delaware has about the same number of residents as the city of Mesa.
Wow.
And he was a senator there, and he jumped from that to the presidency. That's like the mayor of Mesa becoming president next year. All right, but that's just the scenario for his experience, his massive experience that we've seen on display. So say Biden, whether he's impeached, which won't happen, because Nancy Pelosi doesn't even know how to spell the word. So if he goes, then Harris has moved up. Well, even Mark Alexander with Patriot Post, he's the only one that I've seen actually write it out, that Kamala Harris, and nobody's saying this, Barack Obama actually had an American mother. Kamala Harris did not have an American mother, nor did she have an American father.
So she's not qualified to be president.
And they were here, both of them were here on student work visas. They were employed as adjunct professors. And by federal law, if you're here as an adjunct or as a student visa or a business visa, your children are not considered naturally born citizens. Kamala Harris is not a naturally born citizen. And I will tell you right now, she's been put in place so that when she becomes president, the Democrats themselves will remove her. Because when she's president, go back to look at, and I looked this up, how Gerald Ford became president, the only person never to be elected president. This can happen again. If Joe Biden leaves, Kamala Harris is put up as president, she appoints her successor. And the Democratic Congress approves it.
Is it the Congress or the Senate?
Both. House, okay. Both. Okay, both. But they're both controlled by the Democrats right now.
Well, not with her out. It would be 50-50.
50-50 tie.
In the Senate, right?
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that they would figure that out.
Oh, yeah.
And the Supreme Court would uphold whatever they did. So wait. Here's the end game. The end game is she appoints her successor, who is the person they wanted in the first place, who never even ran, right? The way dictators take control of countries is usually it's not the person that was elected. Vladimir Lenin was not even in the picture. And he took over Russia as the dictator, right? These people, it was Trotsky, it was Kerensky. These people were the ones that were leading the movement, but they were out. They were assassinated, and all of a sudden you have Lenin. This is who she is going to appoint, vice president, and then she's going to either be run out of office or resign, and this person is going to be president. And you think Joe Biden is bad, whoever this person is going to be doubling,
and it
10 times as bad.
It could be Barack Obama.
I don't think so, because the Constitution prohibits more than 2 terms.
Is it 2 terms or is it 2 consecutive terms?
It's 2 terms.
So the hubbub around is Buttigieg is who she's considering. So
You
doesn't
really?
that,
You've heard that?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
So doesn't that disqualify her if she's not a naturally born citizen? Because
Then how could she
it
appoint
says
someone?
specifically that you have to be naturally born to be the president.
Right.
So could they say, well, she can't come up. She has to stay VP. We're gonna put somebody else into the presidency.
There's nothing in federal law, court cases, or the Constitution setting out how to do that.
Well, there's nothing in federal law or the Constitution that said you can mandate a vaccine for all military.
Right, but
either.
as we've seen, the election was fraudulently done. Therefore, Joe Biden is a fraudulent president. Everything act he does is illegal, right? But the U.S. Supreme Court, and by the way, the 4 Republican Maricopa County supervisors agree with this, right? They agree. Maricopa County supervisors, how happy are you now that you certified Joe Biden as president running Afghanistan? Everybody who dies in Afghanistan, not only is Joe Biden's fault, it's Chuckry's fault, and it's Clint Hickman's fault. It's all of those guys who certified in a fraudulent election.
Bill Gates' fault.
It's Bill Gates' fault, right. So the end game is getting a dictator in here to run the technocracy. But we have seen what a technocracy is government run by PhD, college-educated people, right? Who are the ones running Afghanistan for the last 20 years? It's not the military, it's the State Department, the college-educated, technocratic experts. They did to Afghanistan what they want to do to America.
And by the way, over those 20 years, we talk about 20 years. Remember, it was Joe Biden that had 9 of those 20 years. Think about it.
Was part of it, yes.
Yeah, part of it.
Yeah,
Obama for 8 years and 1 year with Biden. That's 9 years.
Right. So when Biden gets up there and he says, you know what, we've been there too long, we're spending all this money, why didn't he do something? He was in a position to make this go away for 8 years. 8 years.
Well,
and they didn't have a plan?
No, they did not have a plan.
Technically, the vice president basically has no
Well, but
no
I mean,
role
but
to
I mean,
play.
the way that they chummed around together, and we're buddies.
That's all Joe Biden has done since he was a freshman in high school. How do you think he's got where he is? He chums around with people that can put him where he wants to go, which is to make money for the Biden family. That's what he's always got elected for, is to get money for the Biden family.
I'm so concerned with his connection with the CCP, because we know that China is going into Afghanistan right now. They want the minerals, right? They're becoming buddies with the Afghan people. They're going to be spending a lot of money there. Do you think that any of Ron, I want you to read off what we left in Afghanistan.
Well, that's what I have right here.
Do you
and
think
I want to read
that
this.
they're going to be reverse engineering all of our brand new helicopters and planes and tanks?
So here's the scenario for that, right? What if Biden goes, Harris moves up, and she appoints Elaine Chao as vice president, whose sister sits on the board of the largest bank of China?
Wow.
who was Obama's transportation secretary and Trump's transportation secretary.
And is
married of who? Mitch McConnell.
Mitch McConnell, his wife.
Wow.
It's a little nepotism in here, and
so
it's
you
not
think
a good
China
thing.
owns Biden?
Of course they do. Well, let's talk a little bit about the equipment that was left behind. I mean,
now, who paid for all this? Who paid for it?
U.S. taxpayers, of course.
We did. We
Yes.
paid for it.
And I mean, what kind of I'll use the word that the British use, imbecile, would leave $85 billion worth the assets behind in terms
I
of...
think it's more than that.
Well, we have... Let me just go through with
Yeah.
a couple of... there's a lot of things here, but there's some really important things. We left 2,000 armored Humvees behind. 2,000 Humvees. Okay.
Do you just walk away from that?
Yes, they just left them.
They just walked away.
Yep. Okay, 76,000 total vehicles, which I don't know if those include tanks. You know, we had Walt Blackman on.
Armored personnel carriers.
Armored personnel carriers, Ford Rangers, Ford pickup trucks, Ford big trucks, vans, armored
the Taliban
security
calls
vehicles.
those technicals.
Okay, now
Here's the big one, Ray. This is unbelievable.
45 UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters that cost approximately $9 million a copy. We just left their gunships. They're the latest technologies around.
And
They're the most modern helicopter on the battlefield, bar none. China or Russia. It's the best helicopters.
and we don't think China is going to go in there and Russia's going to go in there and just reverse engineer all of the.
Of course they will. Then we left 50 attack helicopters. We left all of our military drones. Okay, these weren't the toy ones. These were military grade drones. 30 Cessna aircraft for generals and
General aviation.
important people there. This I couldn't believe. I mean, we're hauling people out on C-17s. We left 4 C-130 Cargo Masters behind at $10 million a copy. We left 4 of them for the Taliban to use. 29 Super ground attack aircraft. A total of 208 aircraft we left behind. We left 600,000 small arms. Now, I don't know if do you watch this on TV? You notice the Taliban's using M16s now, and I mean with everything on them: scopes, night scopes, sniper rifles, the whole deal.
Isn't this reminiscent about flying over billions of dollars to Iran in the middle of the night?
We're gonna get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
You gotta believe the rest of it. Okay, we got sniper rifles, 50 caliber guns, grenade launchers, 61 million rounds of M203, 2,000, almost 21,000 hand grenades. We left howitzers behind. Now, if you see the big guns, folks, those are howitzers, the big guns, big ones on wheels. You know, we left those behind. Thousands and thousands of rounds of mortar, 162 pieces of encrypted military communications gear. 162,000.
There's only one reason to leave all this behind.
It was part of the plan.
Part of the
Give
plan.
it to the
It
communists.
was part of the plan.
Okay, we got 16,000 night vision goggles, which is almost unique to America. Very few countries have night goggles. Anyway, I'm just going to skip over a lot of things. We have 10,000 air-ground rockets that we left, reconnaissance equipment, laser aiming devices. I'm going to go to the next page. This is at the bottom. This is reminiscent. Okay, millions of rounds of ammunition, 9 million rounds of 50 caliber machine gun ammunition. Those are the big things you see on their trucks, you know, when they're standing there. Those are nasty weapons. Nasty, nasty, nasty. And pallets containing millions of dollars of U.S. currency.
Now, what was millions of dollars of U.S. currency doing there?
That was
To buy people off.
right.
Bribing.
Right. This goes all the way back to the Bush administration. When we first went into Iraq and Afghanistan and things were falling apart, we had won, and our military people were being killed, they were being ambushed, they were being IEDs, and all of that stopped. Why did it stop? Because we instituted the 1800s British military strategy, which was pay the tribal leaders a stipend to obey us.
And what did the president of free Afghanistan do the first day?
Well,
Got on an airplane with, I think they said, about $100 million.
Whose
Yeah.
airplane?
And I don't know whose it was.
It was ours. It was our airplane.
And he blew off and took $100 million with. But let me remind you the biggest weapon Okay, and this is the scariest thing, and nobody's mentioned it. Joe Biden has the button to start a nuclear war, and the man is incapable of even getting Americans out of this country.
Well, he surrendered.
He
surrendered.
left. He surrendered.
He left people.
And the
So he
British-
would never push the button.
But he could.
No.
He could. I mean, that button does not belong in the hands of somebody that's incompetent, and
No,
he
he'd
is
say,
incompetent.
he'd say, which finger, Barack? Which finger do you want me to leave?
I don't know. How do you say that in Bidenese?
Pull my finger.
Remember, he was speaking like that during the
campaign.
and
And
people
you
still
idiots.
voted for
And
him.
some of you idiot, and
Oops,
those
sorry,
of
I
you,
pounded on the
no,
table.
yeah, don't pound on the table.
He got
But
more
the
votes.
worst, the
More
worst
votes.
among us are the never Trumpers. These are people that should have known better, and they were all out to destroy Donald Trump. Donald Trump was America first. Donald Trump was the man that was holding this country and the free world together. I'm sorry. I hate to say this, but some of you people don't have the brains God gave a goose. And, you know, I'm sorry that that's your scenario. I'm seeing that finally Biden's popularity is underwater. He's at 47%. Do you mean to tell me that 40% of you people out there watching, well, you're not watching this show, but there's 47% of people out there still think this guy's doing a good job?
Well, they thought we should get out of Afghanistan. But if you examine the rationale to go into Afghanistan and Iraq, there were a lot of objections because of what has happened to the British, what has happened to the French, what has happened to the Russians in Afghanistan. But again, the big picture is all of these things are being done similarly. How we are running the border is exactly how we're running Afghanistan, which is exactly how we're running the scamdemic. Exactly how. And it's exactly how we were running the economy and the energy, right? And here's the thing. The end game is to have a technocratic dictatorship in America. Remember that. That's the end game, is to eliminate the democratic republic that used to be called the United States of America. And so here's the thing. This is the way they work. This is the way they went into Russia, China, is they had what Vladimir Lenin called useful idiots. And there's an author, Mona Charen, wrote a book, actually, Useful Idiots, and she catalogs how this happens. So you have useful idiots are put in place to create confusion and chaos because why? They're imbecilic incompetence. Then they are removed for incompetence or malfeasance or imbecility, opening the way for the coming dictator to come in and restore order to the confusion and chaos. Make no mistake, this is the end goal of Afghanistan. This is the end goal of the border. This is the end goal of vaccine passports because that brings it down to your personal house. So that if you have a vaccine passport, you have now joined the Taliban. You have the vaccine passport. You wear the mask. You have now joined the Taliban and how to take down America. The end goal is vaccine passports. You have chaos, confusion, charade equals control. Control is the end game. What we have to do right now, sorry, don't pound on the table. What we have to do right now is end the charade and choose not to participate in the charade. Choose not to participate. The sooner in this process you remove yourself out of this confusion and chaos, the easier it is to stop it. I've read examples where people think that we're 50% there. And once we start down the hill, it's very difficult to turn it around. So either you choose to stop it, either you choose not to play a part of the charade, or you do what Samuel Adams said, and you bow down and start licking the hand that feeds you. So that's your choice. Of course, you have to take your mask off to do that. But we can't complain about what's going on in Afghanistan.
Don't bang the table.
We can't complain about what's going on in Afghanistan while we sit there and allow the exact same thing to happen in every neighborhood in America by this vaccine passport. It's exactly the same thing. It's all part of the same plan.
I want to address some of this because today, of course, they said that Pfizer now has been authorized in this.
And so they're going to crank it up.
Now, I want to say something about that because a lot of you are going to get fooled, in my opinion, into thinking, well, it's been okay. How many drugs has the Drug Administration, FDA, pulled off the shelf once they got? Remember thalidomide, Ray?
Yeah.
Do you remember the thalidomide babies that were born without
Fen-Phen,
hands or fingers? And
Fen-Phen.
All of these things, and they were all approved.
Mm-hmm.
That still bothers me when they say, "Oh, well, it's been approved."
Listen, because the FDA got so busy approving drugs that they have allowed representatives of the pharmaceutical companies to be part of the FDA approval process. It is my understanding that between 40 and 50% of the people that sit on the FDA approval board are employees of the pharmaceutical companies. Pfizer has people on the FDA board that approved this vaccine.
Now,
so it's a conflict of interest.
And normally it takes years to have all of this data, but they're saying, no, we have all these people coming in already.
Right. Now, we say, okay, fine. We've had this stuff around now, what? The vaccines have been around for, 7-8 months?
Right.
How do we know what they do at the end of 1 year? Or 2 years?
We don't.
Or 5 years?
We don't.
No, because we haven't tested
them.
But
we do know.
And yet they say, oh, well, they're safe to take. You don't know they're safe to take.
But we do know that all of the previous mRNA shots, the animals have died. We know that.
100%.
Yeah.
So here's some.
And I think the inventor of the mRNA said, do not, he says he does not recommend it. How about that?
Right.
And remember, again, just to disclose, this is the research that we've done here. We ask people, don't believe what we're saying here. We want you to do your own research. We want you to open up your own eyes. We want you to do any investigation that you need. Talk to your doctor, talk to your counselor, talk to your priest, your minister, however you want to handle this. But God gave us all common sense. He gave us all free will. And in this country, we have the right to determine our own life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, right?
Right.
So you decide. Don't take it from us. Don't say, well, Ron told us that we have to do this, but Ben was on the show. He said, yeah. No, we're telling you right now, full disclosure, do your own research. And you know what? You don't have to share with everybody. You don't have to go out and say, yes, I did this. No, I did that. I remember that HIPAA has certain guidelines. If people ask you a medical question, you say, I'm sorry, I don't have to answer that question. You don't have to disclose it.
And yet they're keeping people out of stores and so forth. They can't do that.
The statistic that they're using to bully people is that they say that all the cases, all the hospitalizations, all the deaths that are happening now are with the unvaccinated, right?
That's not true.
But what they've done is they've taken the statistics they have gone by is January 1 to August 1. All right, in January 1, only 0.5% were vaccinated. So the vast majority of people were not. And so obviously people who got sick were unvaccinated because everybody was unvaccinated. So it's a false statistic. So here's some accurate statistics just from this summer. And this is from Israel, this is from Scotland, and this is from the state of Massachusetts just recently. In Israel, the data show that half of all COVID-19 infections are now in the fully vaccinated. 85 to 90% of COVID-related hospitalizations in Israel now are fully vaccinated, and the fully vaccinated also account for 95% of all severely ill, compromised patients.
Okay, read that statistic one more time because it went by very fast for me,
right.
And I'm sure that they want to hear that one more time.
Okay, so
fully vaccinated.
So
people.
you have you have infections, you have hospitalizations, and you have severe consequences. Those are the three categories. In Israel, right, who has the highest percentage of vaccinated people in the world, right, today, half of all infections are fully vaccinated. That means both, right? Hospitalizations are fully vaccinated, 90% of hospitalizations. Fully vaccinated account for 95% of severely compromised patients. Now let's go to Scotland. Scotland, official data on hospitalizations and deaths show that 87% of those who have died from COVID-19 since July were fully vaccinated. 87% of the people in Scotland. All right? The CDC investigated. The CDC investigated. Can I say that again for those that only speak Bidenese? The CDC investigated an outbreak in Massachusetts between July 6th and July 25th, revealed that 80% of all hospitalizations were among the fully vaccinated. This is what is happening right now. Look up Pugh, the guy who's the starting right guard for the Cardinals. I want to say Justin Pugh. He came out because he tested positive on Tuesday, so he couldn't play on Friday. And he faulted the NFL's testing system because he said if you're vaccinated, you only get tested every 2 weeks, but the unvaccinated are tested every week. So what happened was we lost 2 of our starting offensive linemen last week because they both tested positive, even though being fully vaccinated, because they weren't tested day 1. They waited till day 14.
So they were probably spreading the disease.
Well, you can spread the disease even if you're vaccinated.
So the governor of Texas was he was tested positive, and then he retook the test and he tested negative. That just came out today.
Well, if it was a PCR test, it's a bogus test, and even
now they've
even the
changed
FDA says they're going to stop using it. What?
Right, so
September?
So are they
December
still using?
1st.
Are they still using the PCR test?
Yeah.
Okay. Even though that was done by an emergency authorization, and even though the CDC and I believe the NIH said that is not a reliable testing method.
Yes.
They're still doing it,
at this
and
point,
we're still.
In all fairness, hold on. In all fairness, is there a doctor in the house? Yes, there is. There's a doctor right over here.
Yes.
And so she's not on the air, but
she's not on staff either.
So, at any rate, when we're getting information from a licensed
But again,
doctor,
don't believe us. Go to the CDC website. Go to the Pfizer website and look at what it says about its own vaccine.
Yes.
Now, there was the CEO, I believe, of Pfizer.
No, it's the chief medical
of Pfizer.
Chief medical officer resigned because they disagreed with what was going on.
But I believe it was Pfizer said that we are not mandating the vaccine for our employees.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Was that the Pfizer one? I think it was Pfizer. Yeah.
Yeah, Pfizer.
Yeah.
So
that's
that's
pretty interesting.
But that reminds me, because our president knows that our acting president knows that he cannot mandate vaccines for American citizens. So he is calling upon businesses to force their employees
coercion
to get vaccinated.
And that's called fascism, too.
Yes, that's absolutely called fascism.
All right,
so we have to create alternative businesses, alternative places to get food.
Okay, but there are some exceptions. Can we talk about exceptions? If you're mandated at your workplace, there are some exceptions, right? If you're medically not able to, your doctor says, you may be immune suppressed. That's kind of hit and miss, right? Religious exemption, right? That is still in play.
Again, these all depend on our favorite people, the courts, to rule on.
And there's one other thing, Ray, that you didn't mention. That's the phony cards that are being printed up by China. The United States is being inundated with phony, baloney cards that say I've been vaccinated, and they're being printed and sent to the United States.
So what do these cards look like? What do they look like?
Well, I'm not sure what they look like. It just says that you have received your
But here's
shots.
the thing.
Is it written in Chinese?
Once they
Soul.
Once-
That's Japanese. isn't it?
once they determine that you have to have the third, then all those passports become invalid. You have to get a new passport. And then once you see when
Well, I know there's spaces on the card. It says other. There's two others.
if you get this, it's technically not a vaccine. They had to change. Again, we're back to changing the definition of words. Just like we allowed the courts to change the definition of marriage, we allowed the NIH and the CDC to change the definition of a vaccine so that these things could be called vaccines, even though they're more of a therapy, not a vaccine. These mRNA therapies, what they do is they cause the viruses to create mutations, and that is why. And these viruses can also exist in animals. The difference between this and like a smallpox is that smallpox does not exist in animals. Any virus that exists in an animal cannot be treated therapeutically with a quote-unquote vaccine because the animals will carry it and continue it. Whereas, and then what it does, it creates variances which are worse, right? And so then you need a third shot, and then that creates another variant, and then you need a fourth. So what it does is it perpetuates the vaccine passport control of your life. And that is, again, the end game. Getting back to where we started, right, is our failure of leadership. No, I will say it's not a failure of leadership. It is the end game of the leadership in place. That's why they pushed the election to get these people in place.
But do you believe that there are some useful idiots that are out there?
Yes. And the pretender in place is one of them. He is one of them, and so is Kamala Harris. But Anthony Blinken was one of the founders. I don't have the name of the company in front of me. He was one of the founders of a think tank to study the implementation of a technocracy, right? He's the Secretary of State. This was in 2017. He was one of the 3 founding members. Of those people, 23 people on the National Security Council worked for Anthony Blinken in this company.
Wow.
Okay, well, the music's
It's
playing.
all
We haven't
connected.
solved the problem yet, but get out there and call your senators. I did today and ask them to consider removing, I call him the Pino, president in name
Yeah,
only,
I've heard that.
to remove Biden from office. And ladies and gentlemen, it has to be done. This man is dangerous, and he has his finger on the button.
They call him Sink, Commander-in-Chief. I call him the Fink, Failure-in-Chief.
Yeah.
There you go.
America
Okay, well,
first.
We're here with Ben Wick and, of course, Ray Michaels, and we'll see you Wednesday night on Fighting Back. Thanks for joining us.
See you again.
When I want updated information, I listen to Hub Radio Phoenix.